Hey guys, this is Neon. I got a friend of mine who's starting up with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and he used to fly FSX a long time ago, but he's sort of pretty rusty now. So I'm going to teach him. Want to do a tutorial on doing circuits, so he can practice and practice the right way, so he gets it down well. And it also might be interesting to some others, so that's why I decided to actually make it a public video. So, circuits. These are circuits, okay? When you do your circuit, you've got an initial leg or a departure leg, a crosswind leg, your downwind leg, your base leg, and your final approach. If you're coming to the pattern from somewhere else, you enter the downwind leg halfway along at a 45-degree angle, like this. When you do this in real life, it takes you about 7 hours to get your first solo, and where you can do circuits solo. And so it doesn't take you very long to be able to really get the hang of doing circuits and safely in real life. And it's the same in simulator. One of the problems that people have when they're first starting out is particularly this turn here. And because of this turn, you're doing a climbing turn from here. So you're climbing out at 70 knots, which is about 500 feet a minute. You do a climbing turn here, and you're climbing out to 1,000 feet AGL. Okay, and then you've got to level the plane and turn onto downwind at the same time. And what people often do is that they get focused on leveling the plane out. And if you haven't been doing this much, or if you're new to it, then when you're coming up to 1,000 feet. In this case, we're going to level out to 1,100 feet. You get to 1,000 feet, and then you start leveling the plane out, and you go over, and you go down, and you go over, and you're trying to get it right, and you're focusing on this, and the plane's doing 120 miles an hour, and by the time you think, oh, I've got to make my turn to downwind leg, you're 20 miles away. You're way over there. And you're 20 miles and you go away, and you go, well, where's the airport? So you've got to do it so that you do both at the same time. And the way you do that is you have to manage how you look at the instruments. There's a thing in flying, and it's good for this, and it's also good for flying on instruments. Well, it is how you fly on instruments, and particularly if you get into cloud. It's called the scan pattern, okay? And your primary instrument is the attitude indicator. And you go from your attitude indicator to your heading indicator, back to the attitude indicator, to your climb and descent indicator, from the attitude indicator to altitude, back to attitude, to airspeed, back to attitude, down to turn and bank coordinator, back to attitude, and repeat. And constantly, always, all the time, always, just going back and forth, back and forth. And this is particularly important in your circuit so that you can be focused as you're doing your turn from crosswind leg, as you're doing your turn on the crosswind to downwind, that because you're doing your scan all the time, you're focusing, okay, I've got to watch this, and then I've got to watch this. But a good way to manage this is because the turn is over, is fairly easy to get done pretty quickly. So you start on, when you're doing this crosswind to downwind leg turn, you start leveling the plane out just as you get to 1,000 feet. You start your turn at the same time, and then you complete your turn, and you're still trying to manage your altitude. But by the time you come out of your turn, you still should be sorting your altitude out, at least very early on. You should be able, by the time you solo, you should be able to nail this in the turn. You should be able to get this perfectly level in the turn. But when you're first starting out, you're going to struggle a bit. So when you make your turn, and then you sort out your altitude as you're coming downwind. This doesn't apply to real life. Don't do this in real life. You follow what your instructor tells you. Okay, but this is for flight simulator people who are new to this. So this just helps you manage this particular issue of managing your altitude and your heading at the same time. The most important thing is in this is that you have to be, so when you're sitting here on the runway, you have to devise a plan, because the plane is doing 120 miles an hour, 105 knots. You're going whoosh, so you need to have your head well ahead of the plane so that you know exactly what you have to do when you get to your next mark. So you go down the runway, you hit 55 to 60 knots, and you rotate, and you start your climb. And you climb out at 70 knots, you trim the plane for 70 knots, and you climb out, you get to 500 feet, you're climbing out on heading 200, and then you're doing a climbing left turn to, when you get to 500 feet, you do a climbing left turn to 110. Then you start leveling it out. When you get to 1,000 feet, you start leveling it out and do a turn to 020. You come downwind, and when the runway gets, the threshold of the runway gets 45 degrees behind you, like this, that's when you make your turn to base. On base leg, once you make your turn to base, and you complete your turn onto course 290, you bring your power back to 1,500 RPM. You hold it level and trim it for 65 knots. And as soon as you hit the white arc here on the airspeed indicator, you drop your first notch of flaps, and then continue to trim for 65 knots. Once you hit 65 knots, you'll start descending at 500 feet a minute. And then when you get to around 700 feet, or the runway appears at around, when the threshold of the runway is at about this point of your wing, you start your turn on final, and which is going to be 200, and you descend down to the runway at 65 knots. There's no more of any of this. There's no more doing any of this. It's all done with, your approach is done with trim to control your airspeed and power to control your altitude. So that's the plan. Now, people often get to this, and I had this problem when I first started doing this in real life, is working out headings. And you go, well 200 minus 90, what's that? I'm too busy, I can't think of that. But the easiest way to do it is think of this as a clock. Okay, you've got 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Okay, and if you look at the gauge in that way, then knowing that your first heading is 200, then it's pretty easy to just go, okay, well, my next heading is 110. It's right there. And 6 o'clock is, well, it's 20. And 3 o'clock's 290. It's really easy. It makes it so much easier. And so that's what you do. You focus on that's your plan. 500 feet, climbing out to 500 feet, getting to 1,000 feet, making your turn to downwind, making your turn to base leg when the runway gets within 45 degrees behind you, making your turn on the final when the runway hits here or at 700 feet AGL. Well, actually, when the runway gets to here, you should be at 700 feet above the runway. So I'm going to do a circuit and show it to you, so you can get a handle on how you do this. I want to make sure I can see the tachometer, the RPM gauge. Turn the landing lights on. That's on. We've already got flaps down. You can see here we've got flaps already down, so that's good. Carb heat's in. There's a check complete. Okay, but in dirt we've got calm winds, so we don't have to worry about the wind. And I'm going to execute that plan. Okay. Parking brake off. Full power. Trim set. Make sure trim is set for takeoff. Yes. This is actually wrong. Takeoff is here. So 55 to 60 knots. Here we go. We're pulling up, rotating. Going to climbing for 70 knots. Just going to climb out for 70 knots on 200. There's 70 knots. Going to forward trim just to hold it there. Maintaining 200. Flaps up. Nope. Oh, you want to go up a bit more. Up. Gonna make a climbing turn now. Got a little bit of back pressure during the turn because you're not generating as much lift now because you're in a turn. And coming out to 110. That's the 9 o'clock position. Go rolling out 10 degrees before. 900 feet. Coming up to 1,000 feet, we're going to make our turn. And with the yoke pressure, I'm going to level it out. And make our turn onto 020. Bring the power back a bit. Nope, not yet. 020, there it is. Just dialing out the back pressure, there we go. Got it level. Still trimming it out, but it's accelerating, so there's the runway right there. So now we do carb heat on. This is, I've got a switch on that, I can't remember what the switch is. So landing checks now, you do hatches and harnesses secure, carb heat on, landing light on. Well, it's already on. Trim it out a little bit more. Okay. I'll drift it a little bit. Okay, so there's the runway. A little bit more. Right by that window, that's it. So now we're going to bring the power back to 1500 RPM. Holding it level. Get into the white arc. As soon as the SB gets into the white arc, which is now, we're going to put down the first notch of flaps. We're going around to 290. And we're holding it level for, bring it down to 65 knots. There's our thing. There's our heading. 65 knots. Bring it forward a little bit. Now trim nose back. Trim it back. Oops, that's overshot the runway. We'll do a right turn. I think I actually came out a little bit tight. We'll do another one. Bring the power back. Another notch of flaps because we're high. We turned a little bit too soon. Bring it down to 65 knots. That's it, we've got the airspeed pegged. Now when the two ends of the runway start coming together, that's when you start your flare. A bit of power. Here they start coming together, see? And we touch down. Flaps up. Full power. The flaps up. Climbing out the gain at 70 knots. 200. We'll try and do a better one this time. Knots. Drift it a little bit. And 500 feet. Okay, climbing turn. Pull a little bit of back pressure. Just to maintain that 70 knots. Bring around to 110. And rolling out. We're actually going to go out a little bit further than what we did last time. So we're coming out to 1,000 feet. And we'll start trimming it out. I'm gonna make our turn. Yep, this is better. Oops. Bring the power back a little bit. Just to get it back down to 1100 feet. Coming around to 020. Rolling it out. Just trimming now to get that altitude sorted out. There's the runway. Again, hatches, harnesses, carpet on. That's it. Pretty much got it level. This is where you make your call to ATC. So I'm going to do touch and go. We'll make this one a full stop. I'm hands free at the moment. See, it's just perfectly level. A little bit of trim there, just to dial out that little bit of extra. That's a bit too much. A little bit more. By the time it hits the end of the window there, it should be right. There's the threshold hits here. Okay, we're going to make our turn now. Here we go, we're going to turn. Gain a little bit of back pressure to maintain the altitude. Because you have to in a turn. And we're going around to 290. Bring the power back as we come out of the turn. Rolling out on 290 now. Bring the power back. 1500 RPM. Hold it level. Bring it level. First notch of flaps. And I'm going to make our turn. 65 knots. A little bit high. Yeah, we extended our base leg, so it's not a problem. I'm trimming back just to get the airspeed sorted. Another notch and flaps because we're high. Power off. That's it. Power back on. Here we go. Now we're just using power just to adjust our descent rate. Try to keep the threshold for moving up or down the windscreen. So it's high, I'm coming down. Another notch flaps. Again, we're high. And we're going to do full stop. And flare it right there. Power off. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Hold it. There you go. Now, I'm a bit rusty at this too. Up. I don't have rudder pedals connected at the moment, that's why it's turning really poorly. There you go, that'll do it. So there you go, it's you just got to remember your plan and then practice it. And remember those headings. making this turn, get this right, and if you focus on getting this right, then if you have to extend out your downwind leg out a bit, then do it. It's fine. Just don't go too far. Don't drift away from the airport. In fact, I think in that last one we should have actually pushed it out a little bit further. This plane is, now I was going to say before, this is the actual what it should be takeoff position for the nose trim, but this says it's like it's up there. But if you took off of this, the plane will just do a nosedive. So there's an error there with this plane that needs to be moved down. And so don't believe that. Okay, just keep it. When you first load the plane in, it'll be roughly in that position. Just leave it there, and that should be fine. So there you go. I hope that helped you, Mark, and I hope it helps anyone else. So see you later. Bye bye.
Boom, 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 boom. I'll shoot you right down. Boom, 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 boom. Ow, 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 ow. Boom, 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 boom. I'll shoot you right down. Boom, 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 boom.